Welcome to Romance Unzipped, your happily ever after book club. I'm Holly.
And I'm Annie. We read, write, and obsess about all things romance.
Let's dive in.
Hey, I'm Annie.
I'm Holly.
We are Romance Unzipped, your happily ever after book club.
And this week we are reviewing A Thorn in the Saddle by Rebekah Weatherspoon.
Yes. So it is a cowboy rancher, small town.
Mm-hmm. Our first time in the cowboy subgenre.
Yeah, this was our first dabble into the dusty ranch lands of charming California.
Fewer chaps than I had hoped for.
Yeah.
But he did have a cowboy hat on at all times.
Yes, he looked quite good in a cowboy hat.
So the characters in this one, Jesse Pleasant, he's the owner of this ranch in a town of Charming, California, a fictional town, but it just sounds like it's in the foothills, kind of close to LA. A small town, but everybody knows him because he owns this big ranch where they hold weddings and people come for vacation, that sort of thing.
And then it's male, female, and the main female character is Lily-Grace Leroux. And what are our tropes?
We've got a date auction that happens. They already know each other. That's not how they start out as rivals at the beginning of this book, and then they move to friends and then to lovers. And in fact, they knew each other in childhood, and he had a crush on her in 4th grade.
Ain't that the way?
But they really come together, and the forced proximity starts to go into overdrive at this date auction.
Yeah, so there's a date auction. Yeah, forced proximity, like small town. She has her reasons of coming back home. She's been kind of the prodigy out making her way, doing great in the world, and everyone's like, oh, we knew she was going to succeed. So they're back small town, and then their parents are dating.
Her dad, his grandma.
Oh, sorry, yeah, his grandma and her dad are dating. Yes, and so there's that forced proximity, and then, as you said, the kind of rivals, but it's almost like anger to friends, to lovers. And then there are the classic sex lessons.
Yes, he is not a virgin, but it kind of reads that way. He's very inexperienced.
And very wounded about it. Like, has a lot of hurt around this idea. And then, one of the tropes I put reverse virgin, which is ridiculous, let's be honest. But
yes, men can be virgins. But it definitely felt like a role reversal in this book.
It did. It was very much the switch. And I think that's our tropes, but it was very tropey without feeling overly troped.
Well, especially since it was a little bit of a shorter book.
Yeah, it was 200 pages. It's very short, but it played out, and the characters I thought were pretty fleshed out for being short.
And there was still a slow burn, even though there wasn't that much time for it to develop.
Yeah, I was like, oh.
I think part of it is the action started so quickly.
Yeah, they jumped right in.
There wasn't a lot of dead time before things started moving.
And I wore my cowboy boots.
I saw that. I was very impressed.
My friend Edie in Texas gave these to me a long time ago, and I was like, oh man, the cowboys.
Yes, you have to do that.
So steam, what was their steam level?
I was thinking a 3, maybe a 4. It was explicit, but the frequency was pretty low. I think they had sex 2 times, and the first was 60% through the book. But it was, they didn't hold back on how things were described.
No, there was no euphemisms. I said 3.5, Holly said soft 4. I think that's the same thing.
I think so.
And then the frequency 2?
Probably.
Soft 3? But yeah, I liked it too because when they finally broke the seal, if you will, of having this intimacy, it was just one time after hooking up that then they had penetrative sex, which I appreciated because they're both almost 40, and it's like there didn't need to be a whole ton of buildup, or at least for them there didn't in the book length.
Yes.
Probably didn't really.
They had this whole setup where, and this, I don't know if this is a trope, but this is a classic. She fell into a pool.
Yes.
She can't swim. He saw it happen. He jumped in after her, saved her.
Yeah.
He was her knight in shining armor. And then he offered swim lessons. And then in exchange, she's playing it all cool. And she offers to give him sex lessons.
No big whoop.
Right. And they both were very mature about it.
Yeah, they're like, cool.
Okay, that would be helpful. Let me look at my schedule.
I'm pretty free this week. So I haven't been able to have an erection or really date anyone for my intimacy issues, but I can fit in sex lessons with my childhood crush.
Yeah. And so they started off with this, oh, well, we're just friends. We're just going to text as friends.
As friends.
And at one point, I laughed because Lily-Grace, it's one of her chapters, and she's saying, "Oh, it was just a kiss among friends. It was just an underwater dry hump."
Just a dry humping in the pool with friends, as one does. So, who are our characters?
So we mentioned Jesse Pleasant. He is not only the male lead, but he really feels like the protagonist in the book. To me, it felt like a book about him, whereas usually the females kind of dominate the storyline.
That's true, because she had her own journey, but she was a very already developed adult, and he had this big
He had a lot of growth to go through.
Yeah, and he's very handsome.
Yeah,
he's very sexy.
Is a fresh drink of water. He's 6'7".
Yeah.
She says he has tree trunk thighs.
Yeah, she said his thighs are thick enough to crack a whole field of watermelon.
He always wears his black Stetson cowboy hat.
He's bald. I don't know if that is because he's lost his hair or he shaves it, but he's like smooth.
Super bald, and he's got a goatee. And he described himself as saying one of only a few out of every 1,000 could pull it off. And then she describes him later saying basically the same thing, that nobody else that she's ever seen could pull off this look.
I agree. A goatee's not and not everyone can do it. Just proceed carefully if you're considering one for yourself.
Yes.
Talk to trusted advisors.
One thing that disappointed me about this book, the cover had a cowboy.
Without a goatee.
No goatee. He was not 6'7", and he did not have tree trunk thighs.
And he wasn't bald.
Yeah, he had a hat. I don't
can't
remember the hair,
okay.
but those features in particular, I wanted Jesse.
Yeah, no goatee.
He was a perfectly good-looking cowboy, but not who I had in mind.
Yeah. So he has dark black skin. He's very dark black skin is how he describes himself. And so as he's self-describing, says that he always draws eyes because of his height, his width. He's very strong, his dark skin color. And
he says he's tall as fuck and wide as fuck.
Yeah. So and he's just handsome. He's a hot dude. He is very well dressed.
Yes.
He's very controlled and organized, like in his house, in how he goes about his day, in how he prepares for the next day. I was like, God, I got to take some notes from Jesse.
Yeah.
My life is a disaster. Jesse, please help.
Well, and I think part of that is almost a coping strategy because he takes care of his whole family.
Yeah.
And part of it, he wants to, and he's good at it, but then you can tell there's a lot of resentment that he wishes they would fend for themselves and plan things and cook their own meals and things like that. And she calls him out almost immediately saying, "Oh, you're being a martyr." And that kind of stung him a bit because she was right.
Yeah. That's a good one. It's always hard for someone to be like, what? But I'm saving everybody.
Right. They need me.
They need me. But yeah, so when she sees his closet for the first time, it's huge. And it's full of like perfectly pressed suits. He always wears suits that are custom tailored, of course, because he's such, like he's built like a professional athlete. Like he's a massive, super in shape dude. So he has these wonderful suits. And then when he's going to get dressed, he describes in his head what he's wearing. So he's very style conscious. He's like one point he puts on a new sweatsuit and sneakers he's only worn twice. You know, he's like, yeah, I got to look. So.
And then the other person that we have in this book,
Lily-Grace, which
Lily-Grace
I love.
Leroux.
It's hyphenated, Lily-Grace.
And she's
tall
seemingly,
too, 6'1".
she is tall, and she really appreciates that he can care for her in a way where she feels protected, even though I get the impression she's not used to that because she's so tall.
Yeah, he can sling her around if he wants to. He's a good half foot taller than her, so she's like, ooh.
She has vitiligo, which is a skin condition where there's not pigment in all the areas of her skin.
Yeah, well, and it can be in your hair too. Like some people will have an eyebrow or like a patch in their hair. It can grow in different patches. So it's, I think.
Okay. She's described as having dark curly hair, dark brown eyes. She's quite successful with her job. Her life's kind of in free fall. She's just left her home. She broke up with her boyfriend. She left her job because there was sexual harassment. She was sexually harassed at her job. And in San Francisco, when she told her boyfriend, he basically minimized it and said, "Oh, you should take it as a compliment."
Yeah,
and
he was at the same startup, right?
He at least knew the man. I don't know if they still work together, but they were all in the same social circle.
They were like former frat brothers
I think
or something.
So. And then the company also didn't take it seriously, and she just kind of noped out of there. And she describes how, I think she called herself somewhat rich. And
she calls herself internet rich, so I think she has money.
I think she did well, because she went to a couple of different startups and
Yeah.
had success with them. But she's also talks about it in an uncomfortable sort of way. She says she was the only woman at her company, the only black person at her company, and she kind of always had to
Be tough.
yes, be really tough and defend her existence in a way
Yeah.
that wasn't comfortable for her. So now she's back home, moved in with her dad just temporarily while she figures out what's going to happen next. And on the one hand, I think she really appreciates the break and the fact that her dad is so openly caring for her. But she's also just this driven woman who's kind of going stir crazy. And a part of her feels like it's too small of a town. I won't be satisfied in this small town. But then, of course, over the course of the book, she realizes, oh, it's great. I
All
like
I need
that I
is
can.
a big man.
Yeah, I can go to the store and see people that I know, and it's a beautiful area, and I can go for a horseback ride, and of course, there's Jesse.
Ride a cowboy.
Yeah, who needs a horse when you have Jesse?
So just the last part of kind of her personality and also how like the world has treated her from how she looks. When she was young, she got this growth spurt super early. So junior high, she's a very tall, young black girl with her skin. She's a vitiligo, so her skin has, she kind of describes it. It sounds like it has spread a bit too as she has aged, but it's like across part of one eye and across her cheek. And she knows she's beautiful, but kids can be horrible. And so she was very excited to leave and not go to Charming High School, Charming being the town. And her dad was able to afford to send her to Exeter Phillips, which I guess is a fancy school for high school. But she said she wasn't expecting that how terrible rich white prep school kids would be to her. And then she kind of makes this like joke, but not, of how that prepared her to work in tech, because she's like, you can't be an open, vulnerable black woman in tech, especially in this environment that she's describing, of this kind of like bro world where it's like, oh, it's a joke. You can't take a joke. So so she comes back and she's very strong, but she's also guarded.
She does kind of have this shell of, like, she's quick to react, maybe even quick to anger. So the way that they meet each other at the start of the book, I mean, they knew each other as kids, but Jesse comes home, and on this compound, this ranch where he lives, all of his family members have houses on the block.
Sounds so awesome. I want
It
to
does
live on
sound,
a compound.
no. So he just walks into his grandma's house, and she's in her 80s, and
She's boning.
she's getting on. I don't know if it was a full penetration that he witnessed, but he saw some things he didn't want to see.
Yeah, his pants and zipper were down.
So he grabs this old man.
August.
This happens to be Lily-Grace's dad. Picks him up and starts yelling at him, and in the scuffle, August kind of backs up, falls over, breaks his wrist. Jesse didn't actually push him or break his wrist, but he caused it, and he was yelling, and he had
he's
this
an angry 6'7" dude that's
this big
really
temper
pissed.
tantrum. And in his mind, he's thinking, what is this guy doing to my grandma? He's going to take advantage of her. She's too old. And he wasn't giving his grandma any agency. But he was also coming from a place of protection.
And from anger problems.
Yes. So Lily-Grace is just, she wants to kill him. I mean, part of it's a little bit tongue-in-cheek, but she's saying to her dad, just give me his address so I can go over there and shoot him. Like, I'm gonna break his fingers. And that's the
She's
start.
like channeling all her man anger
Yes,
onto him.
she really is. And she's got a lot of man anger because she just had this traumatic experience with sexual harassment and then her boyfriend not.
Well, and the thing with the boyfriend I thought was interesting is, like, this is such a classic setup in romance novels, right? Where it's like the shitty ex-boyfriend who treats someone poorly, but it's usually like cheating or something very like over the top. And this is like not a super uncommon thing that actually like is pretty easy to brush under the rug, where you're like, this thing happened and I'm really upset. Like, I wasn't, assaulted, but I was harassed or something inappropriate was said. And like whoever the guy is diminishes it. And she was just like, hell no. And so that was really cool. I thought that was the breaking point, as opposed to this like big thing that everyone could be like, that's a crime.
Right.
Because this is like emotionally very unkind and not how you want your partner to treat you, but also not something that everyone always recognizes.
She had to like get her own internal validation for that being wrong.
Yeah,
because
totally.
It's not just an automatic that everyone would agree with her.
Right, because he wasn't like, you stupid lady, shut up. He was just like,
You deserve to be treated poorly.
Face push. Yeah, but he was like, oh, that's hard, but maybe are you overreacting? So is this like kind of mini gaslighty, but
Right.
danger, like odd turf? But then, which was interesting too, the bigger context, sexually he was her dominant and she was the submissive. And so that's like another spin on the power dynamic, because he's supposed to protect her as she understood in their relationship. And then throughout the course of it, she's like, he doesn't protect me.
Yeah, as she had some perspective from not being in the relationship anymore, she definitely
And she got some of Jesse's protection.
I know. She had these realizations that, oh, I didn't love him. He didn't treat me that well.
Yeah.
And I put up with a lot of disrespect in our life because I thought it kind of fit into this whole dom submissive role playing, but that was just him being a dick. That had nothing to do.
Yeah, he's just a jerk.
Yeah, he's just a jerk face. One thing that was a little disappointing, she at many times discusses, oh, well, I had this
whips and handcuffs.
Yeah, super hot sex life before, and now Jesse is so inexperienced. But none of that ever made the page. It didn't feel like a backstory that needed to be there, because any of the sex that we read about, and I know Jesse was inexperienced, but there was none of that.
Yeah.
It was a little bit of a bait and switch.
I agree. You're right. It was like, when I read it, I was like, this is an interesting piece of the plot. Like, how does it play into it? And then there was...
It just really didn't.
And she's like, oh, he's just going to want vanilla sex. And then they just have sex twice. And then there's the epilogue, which is not full of BDSM sex.
No.
But it is really
It's a cute epilogue. This is the first book we read in several weeks that had an epilogue.
And it did not have a baby in it.
Well, it didn't have their baby.
Right, but they didn't have her.
No, she wasn't
impregnated.
She wasn't pregnant, but a side character had twins. There were so many side characters in this book, and I tried really hard to keep track of them. And then at a certain point, I just stopped trying, and it was very freeing. It's like when you just decide to go outside and you see a stain on your shirt, and you're like, screw it, I'm just going to the grocery store. I'm not going to change. It was that kind of feeling where I just let it go. And I would read about a character. I'm like, I don't know if that's his cousin. That might be
Corey
a worker.
Vega?
Yeah, never figured out Corey. She was a little antagonist.
She was a real antagonist. I was like, shut the fuck up.
Wasn't a huge fan of hers. Don't know who she was. I don't know how she was related.
I just feel like she worked on the ranch and then someone dated her.
Yeah,
Question mark.
There was a lot of coupling up.
It should be said, this is one in a series of the charming family.
Yes.
So
I think this is the third of 3.
Yeah, so there's 3 brothers. He's the eldest, and probably the one that was the biggest like mystery question mark up until this point, because he's very taciturn and very quiet. And I liked this about him because he was so shy, and he was talking about this fear that he had of kind of not being loved by his parents, which also like Great Big Beautiful Life, when they have one phone call with her mom and she's like, boom, solved. Same thing, he has one phone call with his dad, who in the middle when he's talking to his therapist, which also that was an amazing moment, that he just randomly was like, okay, I will get a therapist.
I'm going to go to therapy.
I'm going to go to anger management. That's fair, guys.
I'm going to take care of this.
Very gracefully. He's like, I hate my dad because he's like kind of emotionally abandoned me as a kid because I wasn't who he wanted this like robust cowboy kid, and Jesse was this like really serious, quiet, really sensitive kid, and so the dad and kind of pawned him off on the grandparents. He has one phone call with the brother and the dad at the end, and everyone's like, "Oh, we love each other," and it's solved.
Gotta love a good bow tie that wraps it all up.
Yeah.
So there was obviously some kind of trauma about his dad emotionally abandoning him as a kid, right?
Yeah.
I got that from the therapy scenes, but the way the end of the book with the call to the dad read to me, it felt kind of immature. These 3 brothers are all talking to each other, and they're like, oh, our parents should be here. Oh, when they came to the wedding, they were only here for the weekend, and then they flew away. And one of the others
They're all like in their almost 40s.
Yeah, exactly. And then the other's like, I don't want my kids to grow up only seeing their grandparents twice a year. And I'm reading this thinking, man, this sounds really reasonable, that your parents don't live near you. They see your kids a couple times a year. It just came across as maybe a little entitled. But then they called the dad and they all said, oh, we want you to be here. And the dad was like, okay, I'll be there.
Yeah, and the mom's like, finally, we
I've
missed you
been
guys.
waiting. I want to move back. And it was all fixed.
So that was implausible, and it was totally delightful. Like, it was very feel good. This is not any reason not to read and love this book.
It's a feel good book.
It's a feel-good book.
There's no third act breakup.
No, there's no third act breakup. And some of the reviews I was reading, people were calling it a fairy tale, like the series. And I think that this part with the parent kind of plays into that. And I think that fairy tale, it's just this like, everything is delightful.
Yes.
Like, he is this strong, beautiful, super successful man, and he instantly becomes willing to go to therapy, talk to her, his childhood crush, about his feelings, his sexual inexperience. Like,
He's so honest with her.
so honest, so vulnerable, so willing, like ready to lay down the line. I'm like, I get why people kind of feel like this is a little fairy tale-ish.
It's were you and I the ones talking? I think this was your idea, having like a phone sex line, but
Oh yeah,
it's just men that are like
emotional porn.
Emotionally, like you call in and they're like, oh yeah, you're right. That is my fault.
Oh yeah, yeah.
They're just offering you emotional validation.
Yeah, I was wrong.
That is pretty much what you're getting with this book.
Yeah, he's like,
he's so honest with her. Because even so, they start out with this premise of, oh, I'm going to give you swimming lessons just as friends, and you're going to give me sex lessons. And pretty soon after that, they both realize they have feelings for each other.
I like you.
And then what do? They have a conversation, and he says, I think I like you. I think I want to have more than just a friendship. And she says, me too.
And he's like, do you want kids? And she's like, someday. And he's like, I do too. And I'm like, wow, this is amazing.
Yeah, there was a lot of emotional maturity
there
in
was a
their
ton.
conversations.
And he was just like, hey, I'm feeling really nervous. I'm worried because I don't have a lot of experience, and I think you might not like that. I'm like, I'm amazed that no one's dated you before this. Even with anger issues, I feel like someone would have snapped you up.
Yes.
But he also was this very rare orchid in that there's a word for it and I'm forgetting, it's maybe demisexual, where you only can be kind of sexually aroused when you have a really strong emotional encounter with, or like feeling with a person, or love feelings. And that was him. Like, he couldn't really have a sexual relationship with someone unless he's in love with them. And he hadn't felt that. He realizes since Lily-Grace left.
Since he was a child. And
she's the one.
She is. And in his
fated
case,
mate, kind of.
Kind of. Part of the reason he's got this strong aversion to having any kind of relationship, sexual or otherwise, unless he's like feels really comfortable with somebody, is because you see this many times. He is so sexualized and objectified.
Like hypersexualized, because he's a huge dude. He's very handsome, and there's this like very offensive, overly dramatic stereotype about Black men and being these expectations of like how they're going to perform sexually. And so he's been getting this his whole life. And like women treat him like meat.
Call him, and he gets made aware of, oh, well, these two are making a bet on who can.
Yeah, people make bets on him. People shout stuff at him, and he's this like fragile,
super sensitive
guy.
So
he's like,
he's just turned off from all of it, and he just feels like he doesn't belong. It doesn't fit him.
Yeah, he does not just want to go to Pound Town. He wants love. He's like, I don't want to just fuck random people. And he's tried, and he can't get hard because he's like, and the 2 times he did have sex, it was
not great.
Not great,
he says. And he's tried other times, and he couldn't do it, and he's just got a lot of insecurity.
Insecurity, but then also this like, it's not just there's a ton of opportunity, but he just
not opportunity that he wants.
Yeah, it's like people are predatory to him because they see him as something and expect that he'll be that for them. And he's like, that's not me. Stop judging me.
And Lily-Grace is very patient and
so
open
awesome
with him.
Yeah,
she just says, that's okay.
Yeah, and it totally is. He's like, don't you think that's messed up? And she's like, no, why? What? You can have whatever type of experience you want or don't want. You don't. And then I really liked, because when they're first hooking up, and she's first offering the sex lessons in a very cool way, right? Like, no big deal. This is just,
friend to friend.
Trade, swim lessons, sex lessons. And he's explaining his lack of experience. And she said, well, do you even want to have sex? Instead of presuming that it's like there's some issue or whatever, it's just like, is this something you even want? And he is able to have this really nice conversation with her, which I thought was sweet, because I feel like all of it, there's so much more conversation now about what people want sexually or don't want sexually, as opposed to this very like American Pie. Oh my God, that movie. Oh. So thank God we're growing as
we're past that.
A people, hopefully. Oh, this was the other thing. So the part about him being so kind of hyper organized, I feel like our dear Jesse had these kind of like sensory things to him, like not sound or environment, but just he was so emotionally sensitive. he felt rejection so strong. Like he really, it wounded him. And then he wanted everything ordered. And it doesn't necessarily even seem like always a coping mechanism, but it's just like how his world and brain functioned, So he was just, I don't know, he's just like kind of sweet flower in this like huge lion body.
Yeah, and another way that was manifested is he wouldn't ride a horse. Yeah. She loves horses and loves animals, and she was very surprised because he owns a ranch and he wears a cowboy hat.
He wears a cowboy hat.
They've got, I don't know, 50 horses or something at this ranch, and the guests come and they ride him around, and his brothers ride, and she's kind of incredulous. Like, what do you mean you don't ride a horse? Like, ever? And he says, no, when I was in 3rd grade, I think, a mean horse bit me. And he just hasn't gone near them since. And it's actually a big step for him. She goes on a ride with the whole family just for him to walk into the barn and kind of make small talk with her while she's getting the saddle on and everything. All the family's like, ooh, he must really like you. He's in the barn. And she mentions on this ride, oh, I wish you were here with me. This is so beautiful. This is so relaxing, so much fun. And so his brothers text him and say, hey, man, I think your girl's disappointed you're not here. And so he makes this huge decision, big grand gesture, to get over his fears and learn how to ride a horse. And his brothers help him because they're like super good horse riders.
Yeah, that's the horse riders of the family.
Yeah. So that is the epilogue, basically, is him giving her this gift where he rides out on his horse and he has all the men in his family walk up to her and give her a rose, and then he comes out and proposes to her. And it's very sweet. Yes.
One last thing that I thought was really cute too about her was, or they kind of shared this love of pop culture, or I don't even share this love, but more we're people who live in this world and make jokes.
Yes.
And Rebekah Weatherspoon, the author, she's really funny. The writing was funny. I was just a lot of these clever little moments where I was like, oh, but they would kind of quote like movie scenes at each other. And I liked too how the author did this. She didn't overly explain it. Like,
yes,
from this movie and this book, like one time Lily-Grace is teasing Jesse because he's potentially going to run for office and like it'll give him a new chance. And she goes, oh, you're going to take these broken wings and learn to fly again. And it doesn't like go into this that song from the 80s that the guy sings on the radio. It was just like a moment.
Yeah, take it or leave it. If you don't get it, move on. Yeah. But there were a few like that. I like that.
Yeah.
They didn't have so much banter in the way that I expect, where
it's on jabs.
Yeah, where one of them is kind of sarcastic at the other, and they're coming up with these funny quips.
No, it's like my kind of jokes where they're like a team.
They're both
making
in
a
it
joke.
together. Yes,
it's a yes and.
It is
not a like. Yeah, because Jesse's sensitive like
that's
me.
That's true. And then she also has a similar type of relationship with her best friend.
They're funny.
Her best friend has got more of that. Like inappropriate wit. So their jokes,
they're a little dirtier,
were also funny, but not harmful. They weren't mean-spirited.
No, it was just like a little body, like BAWDY, like just very how you would make jokes with one of your good girlfriends, like like sexual edge to it, but you're just being hilarious together.
Yeah, you can't help it.
It's just how it is.
When you're funny, you're funny. This is the cross that we bear.
My wife's always like, thank goodness you guys get to laugh at each other's jokes. Thank goodness. But yeah, there's some great little jokes, and they would just roll with it. Like at first he asks for her phone number and he asks if he can text her as a friend. And she goes, well, don't send me nudes. And he goes, well, then why would I need your phone number?
What's the point of texting?
But it's just, so all that was, I thought, really well done. But she is talking about, I can't even remember what, and she's saying how she's a member of an online forum of romance readers with vitiligo, and how they connect over books and support. And I was like, that's really great. I love romance readers.
Yeah, nice community. And that's one of her friends that she mentions. She's not really on the page much, but one of the themes of the book is friendship.
Yeah, for sure.
It doesn't show up too much, just mostly because it's a short book, but she describes how she's got this close friend, and then she meets this friend on the online forum. And a big part of Jesse's growth is getting more friends. He's so centered on work and his family and his obligations
shy.
in his life.
I think he's just so sensitive and shy. And
yes.
like he can do those things and not have to do this thing which is too hard for him, which
right.
is like,
and there's no rejection. He's good at his job. He's good at managing the ranch.
Yeah.
But he knows everyone. He's like this big, huge guy, and he's lived there his whole life, and he owns the ranch. So he's knows a lot of people.
And he engages with them. It's kind of, I feel like it's like math, right? Like work and family and stuff. It's like a math equation. So he knows the steps to do, and you get the thing out of it, and it's okay, and he enjoys it. But it's like relationships with people, whether they're friendship or intimate, it's uncharted, and there's not an equation already made. So
He just doesn't even want to try.
no. So he's like, I'm just going to stick with what the structure that I know. It's really clear.
But he does work up. He texts the new veterinarian
Yeah.
in town and
He, like-
sets up a little friend date.
Yeah, he like calls his friend. Was it his brother or who is it? He talks to like one of his relatives and asks, would it be okay? Do you think it's a good idea for me to ask this person to go get a coffee or a beer? And the guy's like, took him seriously and was like, yeah, I think you should. And then Jesse has this brother that's really outgoing. And so the friend was like, but don't
Take your brother.
take your brother. And he's like, why not? And he's like, because you were trying to make friends.
Yeah, let this be your thing.
Yeah, but he doesn't, he's almost 40 and he doesn't know how to just like make a friend. That's really cute. But he has a whole support system and people that love him. He's not, but he feels lonely.
Well, at the first half of the book, it really sounded like his family was taking advantage of him, because you can tell through Jesse, he's got like a panic attack and he's just got all these responsibilities on him, and it's coming out as inappropriate anger. But it's clear that he's just overwhelmed. And so it seems like these people are using him and taking advantage of him. But then as the book goes on, you realize they all do support him, and they're not trying to do that. Jesse doesn't know how to say no, and he feels obligated to take care of everyone. And they just are kind of going along for the ride. And once they realize he's having a hard time,
They all help him.
Yeah, they step up. One of the characters says, oh, we can make dinner ourselves tonight. Like, let's leave them alone. Whereas usually he feels obligated to cook for his whole crew of like 14 people or something like that. So yeah, there were a lot of side characters. I don't remember who they are, and I don't know how they're all related, but they were supportive.
Yeah, and they all live on the ranch.
Yeah. So we've been talking about her all episode, but the main female character is Lily-Grace, and I haven't come across in romance books a hyphenated double first name like this.
Yeah, it's Lily
Grace. And at one point, Jesse is kind of taken aback by something that she says, and he goes, Lily, and she interrupts him and says, it's Lily-Grace, you know that.
Do not
So
mess with my
she's
name.
not interested in him giving her that little pet name. She does let her best friend Jenny do that occasionally, but she definitely goes by both names together, and that's just not something I've encountered. But I have noticed, as I'm sure everyone has, in the romance community, doesn't it feel like the names are just getting more and more outlandish? It's like a small town coming of age love story between like Crankshaft and Peoria. And he's got this cute little nickname for her, like
Cranky?
Yeah, Baba Ganoush platter, because that's what she ordered on their first date on their disastrous meet cute. It just feels like names are going off in a direction that don't resemble what I see in life. So this was different, although not weird. It was just names I've heard of smushed together. And it was just something I noticed.
And it was his last name's Pleasant, and they live in Charming.
Yeah, that was kind of...
And his grandma is like a screen star, kind of this like fancy Hollywood legend. Her son is an up-and-coming actor, Jesse's dad, so like the adult son. Was he a stage actor? I
think he was doing a TV show. He was in London. That's why he had moved.
And then one of the brothers, Sam,
has an Academy Award.
And then his wife is a celebrity chef. So everyone is pretty fancy.
Even the veterinarian, the new guy, he used to play for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah, he's a former NFL star.
Player. So there are some very successful people in this town.
And a lot of them are good percentage of them are attractive, which
good for them.
Is always, you just never find that in romance novels. These like towns full of beautiful people.
Gosh, we just keep running into these against all odds situations. So about the names, as we're writing our book, we had to come up with names for everyone. That was a really fun part for me. And one thing we used to help is the Social Security Administration database of names.
Yeah, that was fun. That was Holly's idea. She's research.
I also did this when I was naming my own kids. But it's a database that keeps track of all names. And you can look at it by year. So we figured out how old our characters were, what year they were born, and then looked at the top 100 names in that year.
So
just as a starting off point for brainstorming, so that we didn't inadvertently name a 20-year-old person.
Right.
Well, actually, a lot of old names are coming back with
Right.
with some vigor. But for instance, we wouldn't want a 50-year-old named like Braden. I don't think that was around.
Yeah.
So that was a way to help us get into the right kind of mindset for coming up with names. But some authors, clearly, they're just going for, they just look around and they find a noun and then they spell it differently. And that's the name. And sometimes that pulls me out of a story.
Yeah. So what would you name your characters?
Yeah,
We want to know.
It's a fun thought.
Okay, on the names, when Jesse and Lily-Grace first start hooking up and it kind of jumps from their one sex lesson, immediately they start liking each other. And he wants to call her a pet name, but he has no experience. And so he looks it up online, like what potential pet names could be. It's really cute. That's, I think, part of all this personality, right, of his, he's very literal with things. Like, Lily-Grace will make jokes with him and he'll take it very literally, you know? He doesn't not have a sense of humor, but also he's very serious about some things. So
yeah,
he's serious about his pet names. And he'd asked if he could court her, and then he looks it up online and realizes it's to kind of like
marriage connotations.
Yeah, and he's like, oh, and then he's like, I do want to marry her. So
not what I meant, but that works.
But this is a fairy tale in charming, and I am pleasant, so I do want to marry her. And they both share this love of reality TV. So the family, the collective clan of like uncles and aunts and siblings,
Various cousins.
they all come and watch The Bachelor each time. And so there's the new airing of this new season and everyone gets together. And so the epilogue, when he proposes, they pull in some Bachelor tricks.
Yeah,
with
like
the
roses and things like
It's
that.
cute. So this is a really cute book. It's very short. This is a perfect beach read, I think. It's very light and the characters have a growth arc, but nothing is going to rip your heart apart. And it's funny and it's a little bit sexy, but it's not over the top.
Yeah, that's exactly how I felt.
Yeah, you can read it in public without.
Yes, you probably won't blush, maybe once or twice, but it's not going to be like a full sweating episode on the public transportation.
What have I done?
What if they can see what I'm reading
I
through the
can't
reflection
stop.
of the window?
Oh my God, sometimes if I'm on the airplane, I'm like, is this legal to read this in public? I'm like hiding my screen.
You're just hoping there's not like a 12-year-old boy behind you
Yeah.
reading between the crack in the seats.
No, because he's raw dogging it.
I heard that term again.
No, in that context?
That context.
No,
Yes.
people know
I
it's
just
a
did.
no.
Tell
me more.
That was about it. It was just somebody saying, it was Hannah Fry, who is this like British mathematician who explains things to people. She just mentioned something in passing about people raw dogging. Oh, and that's, you know, what kids say these days for not having electronics. And it was like a spit take for me because I just assumed that you were getting clowned, but you're being, or your colleague is being corroborated by an actual mini mathematician celebrity
who does math.
Yeah,
as a celebrity.
which obviously that's like the highest of.
It was on the internet, you
trustworthy.
guys.
Yeah.
It must be
So
true.
it's not just you. I hadn't heard it, but now twice in my life, it's just like on its way to becoming a pattern. And of all the things to make patterns, I didn't think it was going to be raw dogging.
I mean, staring at the wall, not using a device.
Sure. No, we could come up with a lot
of good options.
Better names.
Quick context, a previous episode, we had made a joke because I had heard someone say that their kid had raw dogged a flight. And I was like, oh, sounds so bad. Why?
What does that mean?
Is the offender in jail? And they said, no, it means when kids are on a flight and they don't look at a device the whole time. They just stare at the back of the chair in front of them. And I was like, you are totally getting fucked with.
But, and I agreed with that assessment, but now I have heard it from someone else.
God, that phrase is so gross. Wow.
So let's just exhale.
Also hilarious. Okay, wow. It's really
full circle.
Is it a circle?
It's
like a 180.
Just a back and forth,
Yeah.
over and over again.
So what are we going to read next?
We are reading Plus Size Player by Danielle Allen.
Oh. Is it a contemporary romance?
It is.
Oh,
It's contemporary. So if you would like to read along,
I don't know. I'm very
join us.
excited.
I haven't read this book. I don't know what it's about, so that's always fun to just kind of go in without expectations. That's where I'm at.
Thank
on
you,
this one.
Rebekah Weatherspoon, for writing such a charming,
Yes.
pleasant, sexy, fun, playful rancher cowboy romance. Y'all should read it. You should check out her work and her series. I bet it would be fun to read the whole series at once. You'd probably have the family.
Probably help with all the cousins.
Probably would help. Okay.
Okay. Thank you, everyone.
See you next
Goodbye.
week.
Happily ever after.
Happily ever after.